Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. And now to honor America, please join in the singing of our national anthem. Representing the three-time Stanley Cup champion New Jersey Devils, Arlette.
I feel like I'm at a game. Oh my gosh. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Happy Devils! We will soon find out if we're going to get Jack Hughes Friday! This is a special edition of the Let's Go Devils podcast, season 2, episode 38, the 2019 hashtag, because you need to have hashtags, hashtag NHL pre-draft podcast, powered by Nova Product Design on the Primetime Radio Network. I am your host, Sam Wu, here with Beer Baron and Short Sky. Wow, it is 11 a.m. The beers are already out on the Let's Go Devils podcast. We have people just signing in onto our Facebook Live. You can find us on Facebook on facebook.com/Let's Go Devils podcast. You can also find us on Twitter, Periscope at Let's Go Devils pod. Again, it's at Let's Go Devils pod. You can find us on our YouTube channel, which is starting to hit about 200 subscribers. YouTube.com/C/Let's Go Devils. And for all you EA Sports fans, the EA 2020 EA, the one with Austin Matthews on the cover. Yeah. The people on Twitch, all 4 of you, welcome to the Let's Go Devils podcast. And also you can find us on streaming live on letsgodevils.com. All right, let's go, guys. Big podcast today, this morning. I can't believe we're saying this morning. We had we don't know how to do a podcast with the sun out, so we had some technical difficulties before the show, but
my background has changed.
Yeah,
it's just as boring.
I salvaged mine.
Well, we did what we could because we have a special guest. When we do this pre-production planning, who we're going to bring on to the podcast, we figured, you know what? We haven't talked to Steve Cangialosi in a while since the Devils were 4-0 back in early October.
What a long time ago that was.
Yeah, a lot has happened since then. So we brought the good luck charm back. And, when we say back, this is the second time on the podcast, which means right around 11:20 a.m. Eastern, he will soon be a regular, a friend, a true friend of the podcast, just like Chico Resch, Grant Marshall, Bruce Driver. Am I forgetting somebody? Yeah.
Nick Villano's a friend of the podcast. Can't forget Nick.
Yeah, I can't forget Nick. And, by the way, we should also plug that we have a doubleheader on the Let's Go Devils podcast platform. State of the Fan address will be on at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. I don't know Pacific time. You're going to have to figure it out. The people on the West Coast, I can't add and subtract right now. Okay, 5:30. That's it. 5:30 p.m. Pacific. We will be doing Beer Baron. Are you joining us for that podcast?
It's debatable right now, so we'll have to see. A lot of running around to do today after the podcast, so we'll see. But I'm hoping. Fingers crossed.
Okay. All right. And Shorts Guy will be at the NHL draft festivities, what the Devils are hosting down at Championship Plaza outside the Prudential Center in Newark. Bringing the phone, the mobile studio unit. Hopefully he can pull some guests for us. So he will be down there as well. And say hi to Shorts Guy. He will be wearing a green Let's Go Devils podcast T-shirt. And say hello to him. Pat him on the back. Take a picture.
Yeah. For all you out there, if you see me, say hi to me. Come up, say hello. It'll be nice to meet those that I haven't met yet, and it'll be good to see those that I have met. And it's gonna be a good time tonight. Hopefully, we'll see what the Devils put together with this draft party, which I had to actually call them yesterday to find out exactly where and what their setup was going to be, which you would think they would want to announce that. But I found out it's in a big tent out on Championship Plaza.
Well, that's good. That's good. At least if it rains, like it's been raining here, like it's Seattle for crying out loud. So hopefully
whatever. It's
by
going to be a good time.
Shorts Guy, we should have talked about this off air, but I have to ask you: did you get this? Did you get the 6 draft day tickets that I sent you overnight?
I did, and I actually resold 4 for about $1 million. So
there you go. The private jet.
No. You may. So listen, if I don't call in later, you'll know why.
Because he's on the private jet.
Yeah, just if you're going to go on the private jet, Shorts Guy, just don't go to the Dominican Republic. We need you.
By the way, which, by the way, we're going to. I would like to make an announcement that I'm going to put this out in the universe that if we sell enough shirts after we get the plane, we're going to open up our own little microbrew.
I'm down.
Yeah, that's the plan.
All right, I'm down. We do have to make like a red ale for the Devils.
Oh hell yeah! Definitely.
It's going to have to be brewed. No, yeah, I'll open a brewery with you after we get the jet, once we sell all the T-shirts. Although, I do have to say, I really hope the guy in that picture is not the pilot. I don't know if I would trust him with that look on his face. It'd be like having Van Wilder as a pilot.
Yeah, it looks like he's been skiing all day, and I don't think he's in the Alps, if you know what I mean.
Oh, man.
So, dude, listen. I woke up this morning with the biggest smile on my face. Number 1 overall draft pick, possibility of Jack Hughes or Kakko. More than likely Jack Hughes, but who knows? There's so much chatter going on with the possibilities of what could be going on. I know Ray Shero has been saying that he didn't want to do anything until today. Let's see. Who knows? There could be some big moves. There could be a PK Subban coming to the Devils, which would be amazing. There could be all sorts of different things, minor trades, major trades, who knows? So I think this is going to be a good day.
Yeah, I think this is going to be very active on the draft floor. I think you're going to see a lot of moves being made between GMs. I personally, I think I've been asked who I think the Devils are going to pick just countless times over the last couple of days. It was a big talk. It was a big topic conversation last night at the rink. I had some games last night. Producer Sam got to swing by for a little bit. And that was pretty much the talk of the rink. And the consensus is Hughes is going to go number one, and all the Ranger fans want Kako. They all want Kako.
They all want the Kako. So, I want to ask our friends on Facebook, what do you guys think? What do you guys think? Is it going to be Hughes? Do you see them doing something surprising, trading away that first overall pick? I doubt it, but you never know. It's crazy to think that we got lucky enough after a horrible, terrible season that we have something to celebrate.
Guys,
so I'm gonna
just got to interrupt here. I just want to cut in. When I went to the rink yesterday, when everybody was talking about Kako or Hughes and consensus with Hughes, some Ranger fan went up to me and asked me if I was Martin Wu. Like, what the heck is that all about? I don't know why I get that all the time, but you know what?
That guy's crazy.
Yeah, it's obviously a Rangers fan. Anyway, I'll be back to Bun.
So Lorenzo's saying Hughes for sure. I think our buddy Jersey Joe is saying time for Hughes. I feel like it's pretty much consensus that the Devil fans want Jack Hughes.
Yes. Now, I'm going to throw this out there. I'm going to, just like I did the other night, who would you trade the number one overall pick for?
You'd have to, if you were going to trade that number one overall pick, especially with the talent of Jack Hughes, you better be getting back a boatload of either compensation and picks and a stud player. Because if you're going to do that, if you're going to pull the trigger on a trade like that, they have to do something. And to be honest with you, I was thinking about this a lot lately with the Rangers, unfortunately getting Trouba, as Lorenzo says, McDavid. I wouldn't be opposed to that.
That's the caliber of player you would have to take for that. I mean, you'd basically be trading a top first overall pick already for this year's overall pick. But if that was the case, then I'd feel really bad for Hughes going to a disaster in Edmonton.
I know, right?
But then watch, it would be another young American to save another Canadian team, much like with the Leafs.
Austin Matthews.
Yeah, right.
It's funny too. Like, you think about it, you see what the Rangers have done. You see what the Flyers are doing. I mean, the Flyers aren't adding huge pieces. They added Hayes, and they're bolstering their defense a little bit. They're not doing crazy things, but they're making their team stronger. And then you see what the Rangers did with getting Trouba, which is killed me. I saw that come across. I think Sam texted us before I actually saw the headline, and I was pissed because I was
you wanted him bad.
Oh my God, that was a dude that we could have easily, well, not easily, but that's a dude that we could have gotten with what they traded to Winnipeg for. So now, let's see if Ray can, up the ante. Let's get this arms race going. Let's get PK Subban in here and start bolstering our defense.
Yeah, after the move by the Rangers, and I want to say it was after both Rangers and Flyers moves, or it may have been in between. Went on Facebook and in capital letters, someone put "Fire Shero." It's like, calm down.
Yeah, seriously.
Free agency hasn't even hit. Free agency hasn't even hit yet. There's still time. Let's not panic. We still have the first overall pick in the draft, in a good draft this year. The first overall, with a lot of tradable picks later on too. He hasn't made a move yet. You got to think that they're focused on picking one overall. Get that done, get that right, and then you make your moves afterwards.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of. Go ahead.
Because you got to think, whoever the Devils bring in could be the selling point for bringing other players to the team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so you have to work on what's in front of you and what's the most important thing. And that's picking one overall.
Yeah, and I think that's what Shero's been saying, and especially with all the Taylor Hall talks and stuff like that. And Taylor Hall's even come out and said, "Hey, listen, I'm not the priority right now. The priority is the draft, and then everything else kind of falls in after that." And I think that was one of the best answers that you could hear. And I know
that's a fantastic team answer. That's a team first answer. Now, whether he means it or whether it was crafted by his agent, that's we don't know. However, that is a fantastic team answer. Just the optics of that is fantastic.
Exactly. And then, you have a lot of people in Toronto freaking out because Mitch Marner is asking for a huge contract and they're not going to be able to afford it. So there's going to be pieces that they're going to have to sell off or they're going to have to trade Mitch Marner. So there's a lot of things that are floating around the NHL, especially because the salary cap might drop down to $82 million. And if that's the case, there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be really close up to that cap, and they're going to have to try to sell off a couple of contracts.
Yeah, and I saw a graphic the other day that we are second in the league with the most cap space, which is awesome for us. So we can re-sign players and then come in and be the savior for other teams that are up against the cap space there. So we're in a fantastic position, and I think we just need to relax as a fan base. Enjoy the first overall pick for the second time in 3 years. Embrace whoever it is that they pick, because at this point, it should be Hughes, but it could be Kakko. And then we'll focus on July 1st and free agency, or if they pull off anything in between now and then. We still got some time. And by the way, it's the first day of summer, so happy summer to everybody out there, even though in this raining mess that we have.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, go ahead.
No, it's just we have a lot of positives to look for. Let's not panic yet. Now, if mid-August comes around and the Devils haven't made any moves, okay, then we can start saying, okay, well, what's going on here? But I don't think that's going to be the case.
I don't either. And it seemed like all the indications leading into this offseason, Ray Shero was saying there needs to be some major moves made, or at least he was hinting towards the fact that there needs to be some turnaround in the roster, and there needs to be a lot of, different moves made, whether it be trading for younger players that are still under control that you can bring in that have a lot of upside, or going out and getting somebody that has a strong veteran presence that's not going to be a drag that's going to be on your fourth line. So my honest opinion is it's going to be one of those summers that this team is going to look a hell of a lot different in October than it did last year. And it's going to be so much more exciting. And I can't wait. Opening night is going to be ridiculous. I can't wait for opening night to hear Jack Hughes get announced. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be a big deal. And, that's assuming that the Devils take him, which we don't know yet. We will not know until Shero is at the podium and he reads the name that the Devils are picking. That's when we're going to know who it is. I'm hoping it's Hughes. I think that would be fantastic to have an American like Jack Hughes on our team.
Mm-hmm.
I would not be upset if we drafted Kakko as well. I know that would annoy some Ranger fans too if we drafted Kakko, but they would be happy with Hughes. I'll tell you what the league is getting though. The league is getting the 2 top overall picks from this year going to cross the river rivals that will could turn into the next Ovechkin Crosby rivalry. And you could maybe see the Devils coming up in a lot more prominence around the league if they can start building from here on out, which I would love for them to do. I would love to see the building full every game. I would love to have to fight for tickets, because that means that everyone wants to be there.
Exactly.
So this could be the making of a really big rivalry. Both, we already have that rivalry between the two teams and the fan bases, but this could add a whole nother piece and a whole nother dynamic to it that can go on for at least 10, 12 years, depending on, if both of these players, A, stay with both of these teams, and B, are injury free, and C, that they work out. There's still no guarantee that either will work out.
Yeah.
So
it's true.
There's still a lot of question marks. Just, we're seeing Nico was the right pick at 1 overall, which is why I have all the faith that the Devils front office staff will make the right choice today.
Yeah, and they do their due diligence. They go through. I know they just went out. Hines and Ray Shero just flew out to see Kakko last week, I think it was, to spend like a day or two with him just to kind of get to know him, because he wasn't at the interview process and all that kind of stuff, because they just won the World Junior or the Worlds. So I mean, it's going to be they're doing what they have to do. They're not going to just pass on it because they're like, oh, the guy didn't show up, so we'll just whatever. So that they're going to make the right decision either way. And you're totally right about Nico, because if you look at the situation in Philadelphia, Nolan Patrick is now down to, I think, the third line center. And I mean, like, there's also chatter that he might be traded, which is crazy to think about, because that kid was highly touted as being the number 1 overall pick until Nico kind of emerged. So it's you just hope that if they pick Hughes, he works out, everything is perfect, and then this team starts to rebuild, and then next year you make that playoff push. And at the end of the season, we're not sitting here going, well, I hope we get the first overall pick again and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, watch another draft lottery. I'd rather be preparing for the playoffs than watching a draft lottery.
100%. Or talking about the same thing over and over and over since April. You know what I mean? Like, it would be nice to be like, man, we got into the playoffs and we made a strong push, or man, it looks like
playoff predictions.
Exactly. Or like, hey, Taylor Hall is looking like he could be the MVP again this year, or like stuff like that. That's what makes it exciting. You know, a season like we just had is rough, but at least this is the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, that's I would be completely with you on that one. And I really hope that this works out. And we can't predict the future, but we all hope that there's going to be some good moves made this summer. And then, you know, like you said, come opening night, have a fantastic atmosphere. And, you know, have Hughes or Kako, you know, in that lineup. So, good on the Devils for going out and hanging out with Kako for a couple days just to get a feel. And that shows me that they are doing their due diligence, that they're not leaving any stone unturned when it comes to making sure that they're going to pick the right guy. And again, like I said earlier, they did it right 2 years ago. They're going to do it right again today. I guarantee it.
I feel the same way. And it's just such an exciting day. And it's so funny because we've been waiting for this moment to like lead up to it, and that whole anticipation before the draft lottery, and then the draft lottery happens, and that feels like it was 2 years ago, and now it's finally like upon us. Now the draft is here today. It's an exciting day for the organization. I don't think there's going to be any surprises, like, you know, them picking somebody outside of those two. It's just, you know, this is the happiest I think I've felt since I don't know, maybe last year when they made the playoffs. Or maybe the draft lottery. I was pretty darn happy for that.
Yeah, I was happy at the draft lottery. I think I was happier then than I am now. I think I'm just apprehensive about who we're going to pick. Because it's still so up in the air, which I also think is pretty cool because there's a lot of drama with it as well. And we'll find out, you know, when we're there tonight and we're watching and we see Shiro and the rest of the, you know, staff and Hines on stage. And when they call that name, you know, we'll know exactly who it is that we have, and that'll be the moment.
Yep.
Where I think everyone will go nuts. Welcome back, Sam.
Hey guys. Big draft day party, and you know who's actually going to be there?
Who, Sam?
Our next guest on the Bobby's Auto Care Hotline from MSG Networks. You know him as the Devils TV play-by-play announcer, our good friend, back on the Let's Go Devils podcast, Steve Cangialosi. Steve, this is Sam, Scott, and John. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm fine, guys. Thanks for the opportunity to talk this morning. I would have loved to join you tonight, but I think I have to entertain, unfortunately, about 5,000 people at this draft festival this evening. So that's going to be a scene, and it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm hoping the weather holds up, too. So between the anticipation of the draft and trying to digest the changes that the NHL put in terms of replay review yesterday, I'm dealing with a little bit this morning, but always good to talk to you guys. Everybody okay?
Yeah, Steve, thank you so much for having or for coming back on with us. This is a huge honor. You touched on something that I actually wanted to ask you about, the replay. What are your thoughts about what they instituted or the changes that they put in?
Well, the third category of the Coach's Challenge is probably the biggest one, and it was reactionary, obviously, to what we saw with missed calls in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So you're going to try to correct missed stoppages of play in the offensive zone that lead to goals. You guys know I do some soccer as well, and it kind of mirrors replay review with that sport in this sense, is that in soccer, they go back and look at if goals were affected by a foul from what they call the APP, the attacking phase point. And I guess to a degree, the National Hockey League now has described the attacking phase point from a moment the puck moves into the offensive zone. So I think games are going to take a little bit longer. The league wants to try and make this right. I know Bill Daley came out, the deputy commissioner, and said yesterday, we're only interested in correcting those black and white calls. And that's always the tricky vernacular, isn't it? Because I think there's always a line of demarcation about what's black and white and what's a little gray. So I think there's going to be some subjectivity to it on the referee's part, but they're trying to make the game better, and I think they're willing to give this a shot. I'm interested to see whether or not it disrupts the flow of the game at all, which I think in the NHL is very, very important. We'll see. I did expect them to go in this direction, though, a little bit more intensive on video review, and I think that's the direction the league's going to go in for a bit here.
Steve, it's John. Welcome back to the podcast. And yeah, it's if they're going to go more to these, to these types of reviews, they've got to make sure that they're looking at them quick. Yesterday, in one of the Women's World Cup matches, one of the commentators said that if it's taking too long, then it's definitely not, what FIFA uses as clear and obvious. So I think the NHL is going to have to kind of go along with a similar policy where if it's not clear and obvious and you can't figure it out from one or two run-throughs, then they just have to let whatever it is stand.
Yeah, and, we're talking about a couple of different situations here. The Situation Room in Toronto will still have the say in the final minute and overtime. And you're going to look at situations where high-sticking calls that are resulting in double minors can be reviewed. The referee can consult with the other on-ice officials, but in that situation, he can't consult with the folks in Toronto. So I think like everything else, it's going to be a work in progress here. They're trying to get it right. I do commend them for that. The game is faster than it's ever been now, guys. And I think National Hockey League referees really were taken to the woodshed a little bit too often during these Stanley Cup playoffs for the simple reason that their job is more challenging than it has ever been. The game moves at a pace now that is very much unlike what we were seeing even 20 years ago with some of the greatest Devils teams that we've watched all time. So I commend them for making the effort here. I'm interested to see how this manifests itself early in the season and whether or not we do start to see delays that, kind of take our attention away from what we're supposed to be drawn into the game in the first place, the talent of wonderful players. We'll see. I was expecting this, though. It's not a big shock.
Now, just to switch gears a little bit into the draft, which is an extremely exciting day for all of us here, and I can imagine how exciting it is for you. Do you feel that the Devils are going to go in the direction of Jack Hughes, or do you feel like they're leaning one way or the other?
Yeah, look, I came out about a month ago, and I said I'd fall off my chair if it was anyone other than Jack Hughes. And I understand that what Capo was able to do at the World Championships kind of injected some spice into the conversation, but never once did I feel, on the basis of everything that Ray Shero and Tom Fitzgerald have said about building long-term, and then ownership backing that on the same day Taylor Hall had his exit press conference at Prudential Center, we're going to build this brick by brick. Well, I'm not sure there was any great internal debate, guys, about whether it would be Hughes or Kakko. I think there's been great internal debate about a lot of other players on that board, but with the number one pick, while the Devils, yes, did their due diligence, they went out to Helsinki. Ray Shero and John Hines, I understand, had a wonderful conversation with Capo. All of that is well and good, but the best way I could sum it up is this. Capo appears NHL ready. I think that what we saw internationally and what he was able to do playing against men over the course of the last year has basically thrust him maybe into a favorite for a Calder Trophy conversation, if you can have such a thing, months before the season starts. But to go back to the big picture here, this is not a pick that the Devils are making for the next 2 to 3 years. This is a pick that is very important to them for the next 7 to 15 years. And the point that I've made repeatedly here is the center is the one that drives the conversation for me. If all things are considered equal. And I'm not sure all things are considered equal because I think we've had more of a base to look at excellence from Jack Hughes than we have had from Capo Caco. But if they are of the opinion that they are both star players, they're both going to have wonderful careers, this is the way I'd put it historically. Let's put it this way. A decade and a half into their National Hockey League careers, I can't tell you who's had the better career, Sidney Crosby or Alexander Ovechkin, but what I can tell you is that by the nature of his position, Sidney Crosby, the true center as opposed to the winger, that equipped him to make other players around him better, and that equipped the Penguins, I think, for success earlier in Crosby's career than Ovechkin could ever have such an impact with the Capitals. So you're talking about an elite player here. I think he's been on their minds for the longest time, and I'd be shocked if it's anybody other than Jack tonight.
Steve, totally. I totally agree with you. I think you see the makings of a possible second Crosby Ovechkin type rivalry between Hughes and Kakko, and yeah, I agree with you as well that Kakko is going to be the more impact player right away. And you can kind of compare him having that big tournament to a couple years ago in the World Cup. James Rodriguez had a huge World Cup, was sold for buckets of money, and then trailed off. It's a very similar situation. You can't base a player on one tournament and not his whole body of work.
Well, let's be clear. I'm sure the Rangers are elated to be sitting at number 2, and I think the Rangers, on the basis of getting that second selection, they've expedited their rebuild, okay? And I think we saw that a little bit with the trade for Jacob Trouba in the past week. Everything got a little bit faster here, and what might have been targeted for New York as another 2 to 3 years down the road maybe gets expedited to, hey, maybe we're a player again in the conversation of contender over the next year or two. I do get that. The excitement of the two of them coming into the league at the same time is something we haven't experienced in a long time, guys, because I think you have to go back more than a decade and a half. Probably, I'll take it back even further. You probably have to go back to the mid-'90s. The last time you talked about these two teams in the context of being two of the elite teams in the National Hockey League, okay? I'm not even sure you can point to 2012 and say that it fits the narrative because the Devils, despite going to the Stanley Cup final, let's not forget, did enter the playoffs as a number 6 seed in the Eastern Conference. So, if you kind of look down the road here in the next 2 to 3 years, if the teams continue to build in the manner in which I expect them to do, they can both be pretty good for a long time with these two players driving the bus for each one of these franchises. And if that's the case, I think it's going to create a buzz around here that we really haven't seen in a very long time because there haven't been too many seasons where both the Devils and the Rangers have been considered among the league's elite. And don't read me wrong, they're certainly not there yet. There's a reason they were in position to win a draft lottery this season. There's a heck of a lot of work to do. But I think this is the first time in a while for both of these franchises you do see the forest through the trees here. And you see the light at the end of the tunnel where they both might have something special going here in the next couple of seasons.
Now you see the Devils getting the first overall draft pick and Jack Hughes more than likely coming to the team. Do you see them adding any other pieces via trade tonight or within the next couple of weeks before free agency hits? Or especially with New York getting Trouba, you would think that maybe there's the pressure was turned up a little bit more on Ray Shero, or do they kind of just keep playing this game where they hold everything close to their vest?
Well, what do we know about Ray Shero? We know he's had a willingness to deal. We know that he's actively been in the trade market for a team that's only been to the playoffs once over the course of the last 6 seasons. And through trades, he's been able to add such players as Taylor Hall, Kyle Palmieri, and Marcus Johansson. So when you're talking about what he has in the pantry here for this draft, obviously they're going to draft number 1 and get the impact player there. But you're also talking about 5 more picks by the time the 80th pick of this draft is announced sometime on Saturday. So there are options here. And with no salary cap for the upcoming season that's been announced, and he being one of the teams that is not affected by that, perhaps he has more, latitude here to get something very constructive done. I don't think they're going to go into next season with 4 players on the roster who've never played an NHL game. And the reason I say that is because you can make a case that if they draft Jack Hughes, and I do expect them to do that, then Hughes, Ty Smith, Jeremy Davies, Jesper Boquist can all logically fight for places on this team on opening night. I do think there's a chance that you see 3 of the 4, let's say, in your lineup on opening night next season, but I think there's space here for them to add a top 6 or a top 4 defenseman clearly, and he has enough in his pantry to do that tonight if he so chooses. I think he's in a terrific spot. This is what he's been waiting for. When they traded Marcus Johansson, part of me said, I watched the way he was fitting in with the kids, and I wanted to see whether there was something long-term with Heischer and Bratt. And I remember asking him on the day of that trade, did you hesitate at all? And he said no, because it's all about the future. So here we are now on this day of the 2019 draft, and I do expect him to come away with something before this night or this weekend is over in terms of a top 6 guy or in terms of a top 4 defenseman. I do expect the Devils to add a veteran piece this weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, that all adds to the excitement of this draft. Not only are we first overall, but like you were just saying, there are so many potential opportunities we can do with all these picks. It's just going to be an exciting weekend overall. And then to top it all off, we'll get to free agency, and we've got plenty of cap space to not only re-sign, but to bring someone in and to even be the savior of a team that, is tight up to the cap too.
Yeah, and, that could come in terms of a point producer. It can come in terms of a veteran presence as well. Is there another Brian Boyle type down the road who they think is part of a culture that they want to continue to foster, and whether or not they bring such a player like that back into the equation as well? Obviously, there's Taylor Hall to deal with. Once we get past the excitement of this draft, that's going to be on the front burner for this team. That doesn't mean there's going to be big news on July 1st. It doesn't mean there's going to be big news even by July 10th or 15th. But the conversation then becomes very real because the Devils have the opportunity to speak with him. Now, I don't know if the Devils are still in the process of selling themselves to Taylor Hall, okay? I think they both educated themselves about what the relationship has to offer here. I know Hall very much likes being coached by John Hines. He actually used the words last season, I have never had a level of coaching like this in my career before. And that says a lot about what John Hines brings to the table here. But let's say to some degree, you still are selling the franchise to Hall, because he did utter the words during his exit press conference, talent was a difference for this team in the past season. Part of that obviously was his injury. He didn't play for the second half of the year. But I do think maybe the best selling point that the Devils have, if this is still coming into play, is to show him, hey, we are ready to contend now. We are going to be part of the playoff conversation in the Eastern Conference immediately. And if you can look a season or two beyond that, maybe we're in the conversation with the biggest boys at the table. So that's why I do expect this team to bolster itself. What's better than sitting down, whether that be 4th of July weekend or at any time this summer with Hall and saying, hey, we've added a guy who we can project for 60, 65 points to this team next season. We've added a defenseman, who we think is clearly a top 4 guy. I think then you have the best chance to say, hey, let's seal this. Let's get this deal done. Let's move forward with the only guy who's ever won a Hart Trophy in the history of this team.
Now, one of my kind of questions that I have that I've been floating around is, you say we hopefully they'll add a top, 4 defensemen. There's been a lot of chatter about PK Subban, and do you think that would be one of the defensemen that the Devils could possibly target?
Well, what do you think PK is going to offer in 2 to 3 years? Because I'm going to stick to that timeline. He's a hell of a talent. He's a heck of a guy to market your team around. He's an explosive player. A longtime beat writer in Montreal, who I speak with whenever the Devils and Canadians cross paths with, would tell me in the very early stages of PK's career, before he claimed an Norris Trophy, that we're talking about maybe the most talented guy the Canadians have had on this team, talented position player since Guy Lafleur back in his heyday in the 1970s. So there's no doubt that PK's got a lot to offer. PK Subban is somebody that's going to cost a lot. A lot of the assets that you have are going to go in any sort of Subban trade. What do you want PK to add to your team? Obviously, a dynamic offensive presence that comes out of the back. But I have to ask you, do you think you have enough of that in your system right now? Not the all-star that PK Subban is, but if Ty Smith and Jeremy Davies are guys that you see 2 to 3 years from now running your power play, Will Butcher is a guy who's had that responsibility too. Do you take that away from them because you think Subban is the difference between being a contender and winning a Stanley Cup? And the other thing I also think we have to factor in here, guys, what is Subban 2 years from now? Will we have seen the best of PK by the time we're really ready to say the Devils are in that conversation to contend for a win for a cup? I'll tell you this, as a broadcaster, it would be a heck of a lot of fun to do PK Subban's games 82 times a year. Yeah, I'd be on board for that. I'm not sure that's what the Devils are thinking, though.
Oh, that's a really good insight. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Steve, so I'm going to try to find you tonight. I'll be it's John again. I'm going to be at the draft party, so I'm going to try to find you when I'm there. If you're available, we'll maybe get a couple words while we're there at the draft party after the Devils make their pick tonight.
That sounds good. I live in North Jersey. The rain has stopped. I'm looking up at the sky, which is as bright as it's been right now in about 2 days. So I'm hoping it's going to be a good time for everybody tonight. This should be a lot of fun. The last time I actually attended the NHL draft was in Minneapolis, or St. Paul, I should say, the night the Devils took Adam Larson. To see them with the number 1 pick overall for the second time in 3 seasons, there's a lot of buzz, and this should be a very, very exciting time for the fans tonight. Please, if you can find me, I won't be hard to find. Come say hi, please.
No, absolutely. I'll definitely come by and try to find you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Steve, and we'll hope to have you on the podcast soon.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate the time. Take care and have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
That is Steve Cangialosi of MSG Networks. Is it Network or Networks? I don't know. But hey, he's now a regular. He's now a regular, officially a regular, and a good friend of the Let's Go Devils podcast. What insight, guys?
I was just about to say the same thing. One of the things I absolutely love about Steve Cangialosi is his knowledge and his insight to like what's going on. The whole breakdown of PK Subban, like you don't think about that. You just think of the name. You think of you're like, man, how cool would it be to have PK Subban on a team? And he's such a valid point about 3 years down the road. Like what direction does the team need to go in? What direction is it, like a win now type of mentality, or is it like, are you adding this chip because you think that it can push you further into the playoffs? That is such you never really think about it in those terms of what the long-term future of the team is going to be.
Yeah, well, we look at it as fans, and how cool would it be to have so and so in the team and this and that, and that's why Steve does what he does for a job. He's very good at analyzing all that, and sometimes we look at it from just from the fact that we wear this logo on our, on our heart, and we want to see things happen now. And sometimes you have to kind of take a step back and be like, all right, well, it's going to take some time, and patience is a virtue. And that's, a true statement that I've ever known. And we don't, as a fan, you can only be patient for so long, and there's just a lot tied up with that. So we look at it from a whole different standpoint that he does, but that insight was great and made a lot of valid points that I had not thought of. He also does get a little bit more insight on the inside, which we don't see too, which is also, adds to his, his depth of knowledge and all this entire situation.
Indeed.
But, very valid points, about bringing him in. It's just, I think the Devils are in a fantastic spot right now. He was, Steve was right. There's the light at the end of the tunnel right now, and we are at that point. And we should be seeing, we should be a perennial playoff team shortly. However long that's going to take, I'm not sure. But we will once again be a perennial playoff team, and hopefully multiple cup champion too.
Hey, and that's one of the things that makes you really excited about this is you go through terrible seasons, and obviously, that's why leagues have these drafts and why everything is structured the way they are, so you can get competitive balance. But we, being that I'm 37, the prime of my life was spent watching the Devils constantly in the playoffs, right?
Me too.
Championships, and it should have been at least four. But you miss that. You miss that feeling. You miss that excitement, like you said before. That sitting around talking about the draft lottery. It's all right. It's fun, but it's after a while you think about it, and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to be talking about who our next opponent is, what kind of matchup are we going to have in the playoffs, who's going to be red hot, how's Schneider doing, how's Mackenzie Blackwood doing, and that's something that we haven't even touched on because of all the all the draft things that are leading up to this. And it's exciting because if Schneider comes back and he's healthy enough and he's splitting time with Mackenzie Blackwood, who can kind of pick up where he left off last year and improve on where he left off last year, this team has a fighting chance to make an instant impact and possibly make it into the playoffs in this first year of Jack Hughes.
I'll tell you what, there's one thing that does not miss the playoffs. That's my bank account. My bank account does not miss the playoffs. And having to spend all that money on tickets. That's the only thing that doesn't miss it. Other than that, all right, maybe my liver, appreciates there not being a deep playoff run as well. But I know I miss being in the playoffs. I miss being in that conversation. I watched as much as the playoffs as I could this year, and it's just so exciting, and I miss being there. I felt great for Blues fans because I remember that feeling in '95. I even going back, I remember that feeling in '94 to be so close and to not get there, and then that magic of '95 to be there and to out of nowhere just sweep the Red Wings. It's an incredible feeling. I actually, the day after that Friday after the Blues won the Cup, I think it was a Wednesday that they won. I can't remember. So much has gone on. I went to the Mets game, and there was a guy in a Blues jersey, and I just went up to him and said, "Hey, congratulations, enjoy the victory, man." Just because, it's one of those things. You only win it first. You only win it for the first time once, and as great as winning a cup is every single time, there's nothing like that first time.
Well, yeah. I remember back in '95, I was at a Game 4 Stanley Cup party. I remember it was a Saturday, and where we were, and this for
June
some
24.
of our young,
June 24.
For some of our young viewers that don't know, there were rabbit ear antennas on the TV because they didn't have cable at that place, and when I was holding the antenna with tin foil on those rabbit ears, if I hold it a certain way, the Red Wings would score. So I had to hold it like this and hold it for about 20 minutes.
You tapped into something. We've talked about this before, and I think, John, you said, or Shortsky, you said in the past that you're not very superstitious. Like, I get very, very superstitious watching hockey. And I mean, I'll never forget watching Game 7 against Ottawa in 2003. and the Devils were down. I went out to go grab something to drink down the street at Quick Check, and Jeff Friesen scored. And I come back, and Ottawa scored again, and I left, and I drove the rest of that game until the Devils won because I thought if I was at my friend's house, I was going to jinx the game. So there's been some wild superstitions, and I'll tell you what, it would be so nice just to see them make a push. Like 2 years ago when they went against Tampa Bay, we kind of knew that they weren't going to win, but you still had that hope. You still had that excitement, like, hey, we're in the playoffs. Anything can happen. Somebody gets hot at the right time. That's it.
You know what? I'll tell you how cruel I am with the good luck charm. Sorry, I interrupt. If Beer Baron missed a podcast, and I have him on mute right now. This is how cruel I am. If Beer Baron missed a podcast and the Devils won 10-0 over the Rangers, and they're down 3-0, guess this is going to be the Let's Go Devils pod. We would kick Beer Baron off the air. I have him muted, and we would do the podcast just like that. Just like that. No Beer Baron. We can also make fun of him and be like, yeah, about Mikey McLeod. That's all I have to say about that. What's your response, Beer Baron? I have you on mute. Anyway, those are just jokes. Don't take it personally, Beer Baron. I was just making a fictitious, hypothetical example with superstition. But then again, I don't think you would mind if it was for the team. By the way,
take mustache and come back as somebody else. It's like the water.
Yeah, sure. We would recognize that plain white background anytime and anywhere.
Change my.
You might actually have to. You might actually have to hang something up behind you.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see. Hey, maybe this year I'll get a big Jack Hughes poster or something like that.
Here we go. Hey, they might have them for sale tonight.
You never know.
I'm really curious about how quickly they're going to have merch for whoever it is that we draft tonight. Like, if they draft Hughes and then all of a sudden within seconds there's like, come get your Hughes jersey. It's like, all right, well they knew this all along.
For sure.
I'm just curious to see what they're going to have tonight. Like, it's going to be very interesting.
If they go up on stage, right? And I always thought about this. If they go up on stage and let's say Jack wants to wear number 43, which was the other number, he wore 6 and 43 in his World Juniors for the USA, right? So if he comes up on stage and they don't give him like a big number 1 jersey with his name on the back and they give him a 43, then that they already knew.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure in all these interviews, one of the questions is, what's your preferred number for the team? What is the number that you would want to wear? You have to have, for merchandising, you have to have that so that you can pump stuff out right away. And I guarantee they asked at the Hughes. I guarantee they asked at the Kako, like, what number do you want to wear? We'll give it to you. And I'm sure if someone has that number or had that number, between the two players, they probably have to call them up and say, listen, if we go with so-and-so, then you got to change your number. So if it's Hughes tonight and then they have Hughes in number 6 jerseys for sale right away, like they'd be stupid not to ask those questions in their interviews. We'll put it that way. They'd be really stupid not to know that ahead of time because merchandising and marketing is everything. And you want these jerseys out in the market immediately because it's money in the door. Because whoever they pick, people are going to want to buy their jerseys already. And my guess is all be for sale tonight when I'm there and everyone's there at the draft party.
Now, can you imagine if they had us all pump faked where they made a trade and got like 10 first-round draft picks, or at the last second, or Byram? Remember last podcast?
Yeah.
After all that, they picked Byram. They were going with defense, something like that. I mean, I can't even imagine that happening. It has to be Jack Hughes. I'm telling you, it has to be Jack Hughes. And the Devils, stop pump faking the fans. Stop the Devils' social media. Stop posting videos of Kako, knowing that we're about to go to war with this guy across the river. He's going to be
No,
one of
you
the
have
most
to.
hated people. Oh, come
You have
on.
to. You have to, because you have to build the suspense, because you want people to tune in. You want people to go. You want people to be at your event. You have to build that suspense. It's marketing. It's all marketing. And that's exactly why they're doing it. They have to do this because they want people to show up tonight. Yeah, granted, the tickets are free, but the weather's been pretty bad recently around here. They need to build this up because they're going to, as soon as picks 1 and 2 are made, within moments, you're going to have pictures of the two of them in the respective jerseys in like a very clashy looking pose, that these are the new Cross River rivals. They have to do this. They have to build that suspense. And on top of that, it screws with Ranger fans. It screws with Ranger fans.
Yeah.
Even though they're happy with seconds, whatever we don't pick, they'll take. That's fine. But it also screws with Ranger fans too, and screws with the Rangers. Screws with the Rangers front office and GM too.
Hey, that gives us a T-shirt idea, Shorts guy, so we can raise money for a $35 million private jet. Sloppy seconds, 2019 extra sloppy second. Kako is.
I'll get to work on it.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what Kako is? Assuming that it was the Devil's pick use, and this is a nice video soundbite. Kako is the first place loser. 2019 NHL draft.
I mean,
all I know, it's marketing gold, and that's the one thing I forgot. I wanted to ask Steve about that. Is like, how do they feel about this as like from a marketing standpoint? It's got to be like incredible. Do you know what I mean? Like they have to feel so happy that they're going to be getting such, they're getting Jack Hughes. That's marketing gold. The kid's from America. You could start to like really push that. There should be billboards up and down 78, up and down the Jersey State Parkway, like up and down every major highway. There should be a giant billboard of Jack Hughes, like renew your season tickets or get season tickets or whatever the hell you want to put on it. And you put big Jack Hughes up there.
Yeah. And but I want to say because there was so much, because you can only analyze these two players over and over again. And I think that's also why that whole bogus article about Taylor Hall wanting to leave based on one basic vague quote got so much traction too, because I think people got exhausted because we've been talking about this since April 9th. It's 2.5 months that we've been talking about this.
And then you think about when they won a draft lottery, we've been talking about it for like a month or even more.
No, it's been 2.5 months now since that draft lottery. And we've been talking about these two players for 2.5 months, and who is it going to be? Who is it going to be? And I think there was a fatigue for a little bit, which is why the Taylor Hall article took off.
And by the way, I just want to point out, and of course, because of Game of Thrones, this podcast took 5 weeks off. So it may.
Yeah, well, hey, we needed a mental break too.
Yeah, we needed that break too.
Wait, I got to address something. Nate Holland, just to let you know, Short Guy is going to be there tonight, so keep a lookout for him. He will take a picture with you and hang out with you. If you're super nice, maybe he'll let you buy him a beer. But I mean,
yeah, that'll be a stretch. But if I have to, I have to. Nate, please find me. You know what I look like. I'm not 100% sure you look like. So come say hello to me. I'm not an intimidating person. I assure you, I will say hello. Anyone else that's there aside from Nate, I know a bunch of Devils diehards will be there. Come say hello. We'll come say hello. We'll take pictures. We're looking for stuff to. We're going to post some stuff on our social media from there as well. So come get your picture and then check it out. It might make Let's Go Devils podcast social media.
Hey guys,
we're looking for all that.
I'm looking on our Facebook Live. Tom Laidlaw is watching. Is that the same Tom Laidlaw that played on the New York Rangers?
If it is,
years ago, we should say hello at least. Thank you for watching the Let's Go Devils podcast. I mean, we have, just so you know, we've got a lot of former NHL players. They're fans of the podcast. They watch
friends
the
of the podcast.
Friends of the podcast. We just hang out with them at live events. Like at Mother's Ale House or Tavern. Is it Tavern
on the Rock?
On the Rock. I keep on forgetting. Beer Baron, we're gonna have
9
to
Wall
do something
Street.
about your microphone. Yeah, we're gonna have to do something with your microphone. I think you've talked a lot today.
I broke it.
It's had enough. It's given up. It's had enough.
If you want, I could stop by later at your compound and take a look at your microphone situation. Maybe I can help that. Maybe there's a cable issues, but we have a double header today. This is the first of 2 podcasts because the State of the Fan address with Nick Villano, and he's got his Pucks and Pitchforks bloggers as guests. Shorts Guy, you'll be at a guest as well, live on location on the mobile studio powered by Nova Product Design. You'll be there. Hopefully you can pick up. I know Erica Wachter will be there. I hope you can get her as a guest and send us photos so we can put it on the graphic because we're not going to have a video feed from there, but soon we will be in the near future. But yeah, I mean, try to get some cool guests. If you could get Hugh Weber, I don't know if he's probably in Vancouver. He doesn't want to hang out with us. He doesn't want to hang out with a bunch of.
I don't blame him. I'd be in Vancouver for this too if I was in the front office.
Oh yeah,
tonight's definitely going to be a really fun time, and it's not every time that you get the first overall draft pick, and I think this will be a lot of fun. And I have to say this. When we got the first overall pick, Nick Villano was losing his mind. I can't imagine what he's going to be like tonight after they make the first overall pick. Nick Villano is just going to his mind's going to be lost. He's going to be so fired up. He's going to be fired up if they pick Hughes, and he's going to be fired up if they don't pick Hughes. I think he'd probably be more fired up if they didn't pick Hughes tonight. He would just spitting fire.
Yeah, and that would make great podcasts on the State of the Fan address. And when after the Devils pick in the first round, I'm going to be playing this audio bite the entire time when the Rangers make their pick.
There we go.
Anyway,
I was waiting for you to do it. The Rangers suck. Flyers small.
Yeah. Well, hey, we've got celebrities watching live right now into the podcast. We have to do what we normally do. Keep it family friendly, all class at all time. So wrapping up season 2, episode 38, we would like to thank Steve Cangialosi for making time on this day on the Let's Go Devils podcast. Steve's got a busy schedule. He's got the Red Bull, this and that, and but he's nothing but a very, very classy guy. Also, we like to thank. Well, I like to thank our fans on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, checking us out on Twitter, Periscope, because you're probably at work right now. But it's Friday.
Yeah,
and somehow we're on Friday. We took the day off today because of this draft.
Shout out to Erica Wachter, who's watching us on Twitter right now.
Is she really?
Yeah.
Erica, fine shorts guy. He's going to be wearing a green
this guy right
Let's
here.
Go Devils podcast. The guy on the bottom, that shorts guy. So find him. We love for Shorts Guy to get a picture with you, and maybe, just maybe, you'll come onto the podcast. Am I doing a great sales pitch? Maybe you could come onto the Bobby's Auto Care hotline. Bobby's Auto Care, 2151 Route 57, beautiful Washington, New Jersey. Bobby's Auto Care. That's get $5 off when you mention Sam Wu. A little podcast inside joke. But honestly, thank you for everyone tuning in live. During the workday, I know it's Friday. It's the first day of summer. It's the 2019 NHL draft. Just remember, we got a doubleheader, 8:30 p.m. State of the Fan address with Nick Villano and I, and possibly Beer Baron. Shorts Guys on location. Woo! Till next time, let's go Devils!